You're listening to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast, your source of music news, stories, and 2-hour deep dive interviews with bands that have sold over 150 million albums. If you've been enjoying the podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Now let's dive in to today's episode. Welcome to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We are joined by a very special guest. He's achieved a level of mastery as the drummer for the multi-platinum selling, #1 charting, and 6-time Juno Award-winning group, the Sam Roberts Band. So welcome to the podcast, Josh Trager. Josh, how are you? And is it true that during the pandemic, you picked up a very unique hobby?
First of all, thank you for having me, Joel. And also thank you for allowing me the little quick pee before we got started. I'm well, and yes, it is true. It's no big secret or anything. Yeah, I just, like many people did during the pandemic, getting into different hobbies, like such as bread making, sourdough was popular. I always wanted to try my hand or my feet at tap dancing since I was a little kid. And, since there's sort of a correlation with drumming, particularly in the footwork, I thought, now is as good a time as any. And plus, my wife had bought me a pair of tap shoes like 4 years prior for my birthday that I think maybe I took one lesson and that was that. I figured, now's the time the world is on pause, so I could maybe take a bit of time to focus on that. So that's what I did. I took lessons on Zoom for a while, and I practiced a little bit. It was also great exercise, but I then life started up again, and I haven't put the shoes on in a couple of years now. But
Is there any video documentation of this new activity?
yeah, sure. I did a bunch of posts, of course. Got to keep the content going. So yeah, there was a few things, and I got like decent at it, and I like to think maybe it improved my bass drum technique. Yeah, and I got, but when I get into something, this is going back like from the beginning. I always go full on. So I've started to like, research the beginnings of tap dance and, get into like, check out Sammy Davis Jr. and Bojangles. And I discovered Steve Martin is like an incredible tap dancer as well, aside from being Steve Martin and also a great banjo player. It was really cool and fun. And all this talk of tap dance, I kind of got to get the shoes back on, man.
I feel like that's a good party trick after a few drinks. Just whip out the old tap shoes.
Yeah, well, for sure. Like, I think we're onto something here.
So growing up, my sister was a step dancer that would actually go to competitions all the time, and she'd win competitions in a group. And my understanding is the difference between tap dancing and step dancing is step dancing actually uses the arms quite a bit. I guess tap dancing, they're just held down at the bottom, something like that.
Yeah, definitely. And that was actually something I had to work on because like I don't know what it is, but my hands seem to get like a little bit tense and into like a locked position. So yeah, like having your arms loose and everything is a whole other part of it. So it's it's like learning anything. You're constantly fighting against your own habits. But yeah, I don't know anything about step dance. I don't really know much about dance in general. That's my wife's department.
I have one final tap dancing question if you can
Yeah.
handle it. Is there any chance that in the middle of a Sam Roberts set, you break out in a tap dance?
Well, probably not in the middle of a SRB set, but I've always wanted to do a big band thing. Like, I grew up playing that kind of music, and it's been a bit of a pipe dream of mine to get back into that type of thing. And yeah, I mean, in that setting, maybe that would be something I would do. Or I've always had this thought in the back of my mind of how cool it would be to like, get really good at it, and then like, I don't know, the Junos or something, just do it. Like, I mean, that obviously that'll never happen. It's just the wheels turning and we can dream, can't we?
I don't
That
know.
that
I
was
feel
easy.
like we just put that out into the ether, and you're gonna have new music coming out. You guys tend to get a Juno nomination almost every album, so there's a chance you're performing at a Juno Award ceremony in the near future.
Yeah, I think the closest I'll get to tap dancing on the Juniors is wearing the tap shoes and playing drums or a t-shirt with tap. Yeah, it ain't ever gonna happen.
We'll just call that a win for tap dancing right there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I like to start these interviews by sharing with the listeners how the guests and I know each other, just to show the importance of networking, of building communities, fostering relationships. So in our case, a few weeks ago, I had Colin McDonald of the Trues on the podcast, and you provided some kind words. We got him right in the feel. So thank you for that. You helped elevate that interview to another level. We're going to do a full 2 hour deep dive interview today. We're going to cover your life, your career, your discography. There's so much to get to. I want to take it back all the way to the beginning. Is
Mhm.
there an earliest musical memory that comes back to you now? Like, where did this love of music come from?
Raffi. I mean, music obviously hit me really, really hard, like it does to many. Um, but yeah, for me, I mean, I remember distinctly hearing and resonating with certain music that was just being played in on family car rides, like even like the Grease soundtrack and um, certainly, Michael Jackson Thriller album, even though I was terrified of the song Thriller and the video, and just Michael Jackson in general, fascinated and terrified at the same time. Uh, and Raffi and yeah, like and Fred Penner, of course. And I think it's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Fred Penner. Um,
Powerful shout out to Fred Penner.
that's right. That's right. And I must have shown some you know that I was feeling it on a maybe a slightly deeper level than my older siblings because my parents put me into Suzuki violin, and I don't recall if my older siblings ever had done that. I don't think so. Um, so yeah, I mean that's basically from just in this moment, that's what I can think of specifically that stuff, those artists and yeah.
When we scheduled this interview, I put out the bat signal to the Sam Roberts Band fans to
Mm.
see if they had any questions. If they could sit down with you for 2 hours, what would they ask you? And I got a ton of submissions here. I'm going to sprinkle them in throughout the 2 hour interview. And the first one comes in from Starlight Fatima from Instagram. Her question is, do you have a band or drummer who inspired you to start playing?
Yes, Guns N' Roses, and it was Matt Sorum at the time. And in the world of that band of Guns N' Roses, there's a lot of debate as to who the better drummer was for that band, and a lot of people cite Steven Adler, who I think is great, and I love the Appetite for Destruction and Lies records, but it was really just about the timing. Of where I was in my life, how old I was, and how receptive to different types of music I was. And it's the same for anyone when they get to the specific formative age, particularly like, I say like maybe age 9 or 10 to like 14, 15, somewhere in there, you really kind of establish, your maybe not your musical taste for life, but certainly something that has a lot of weight to it at the time. And for me, that time just was early '90s. I was like 10, and that was what was around. Like you couldn't escape GNR in the early '90s, and so it just so happened to be Matt Sorum, who I think is a fantastic drummer. Um, and I take nothing away from Steven Adler. So yeah, and if, what it was for me, and I've talked about this before, is just the sound of the drums, like the sound of this, especially the particular drum fill that is like used ad nauseum on a lot of those songs. Don't Cry, November Rain, Live and Let Die. I mean, it's just same fill, and the drums just sounded so huge to me. And I was already like, I just touched upon like early influences and stuff like Raffi and Michael Jackson and everything that got me pumped up about music. And then like, years after that, I got into La Bamba and I wanted to play electric guitar. And, I was super obsessed with that. So this was sort of like the next step. It's like that was like the gateway. And now Guns N' Roses drum fills, I'm all of a sudden obsessed with drums. Yeah.
And as a kid, before you figured out that you wanted to be a professional drummer, was there anything you wanted to be as a kid when you grew up?
So much. So much.
A
Yeah.
hockey
Like
player, like a good Canadian boy, or
no, never. Maybe a baseball player, but a baseball player in movies. Like I was a big fan of baseball movies. Bad News Bears, Major League. I was practicing like throwing pitches against the basement wall. Yeah, no, I never. Nothing really ever in sports. Mainly in the arts, and particularly in like the film, theater, television world. Like I definitely had aspirations of like being an actor as a kid. But I think everyone got Macaulay Culkin fever in those days, and
Home Alone and Richie Rich?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Home Alone, My Girl. I mean, Uncle Buck. You know, just I just didn't quite have the the same kind of charm as Mac, um, and I think growing up and seeing the Michael Jackson making of Thriller, like home video, and then years later seeing Phantom of the Opera, the in Toronto. Even though I'm from Montreal, we went to Toronto to see it. And then like sort of those two things sort of colliding, and then realizing that hey, wait a minute, I think I'm obsessed with like theatrical special effects makeup. So that was one of the things I got really into and thought, oh, this is going to be my career. Yeah, and also I was very fond of drawing. I was really into drawing. My mother's an artist, and so I also had aspirations of like being a cartoonist. So yeah, mainly that kind of stuff.
So we have a fan question about your acting. This is from Lisa Lewis, who asks, will you be doing any more acting soon? Perhaps a project with your wife, as long as it doesn't interfere with your concert schedule. And she put a laughing face. Then she put another thought. I could totally see the band do a little half-hour comedy show like the Monkees did. They're all hilarious.
Yeah,
That's from Lisa.
yeah. The band and myself, we've all like we could probably write, I don't know, like 20 seasons of a sketch comedy show with all the ideas and scenarios that we've tossed around. Like that would make a great sketch. Yeah, for sure. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But we'll leave that to the professionals. And in terms of the acting, it's like if you ask, especially for me, like I understand that business because I've been living with and married to an actor for 11 or 12 years now, and asking an actor or anyone in the performing arts if you're going to do it again, who the hell knows? Because you never know at any level, you never really know if you're ever going to get another gig again. So hopefully that would be cool. I seem to be typecast into playing blind guys because I am also visually impaired, which we'll, I guess, get to later. And yeah, I think if it ever came up that there was an opportunity for me to act along with my wife, she would probably, roll her eyes at that, but I think she'd find it cute and adorable to take on, So who knows? Never say never.
Hey, anytime the wife thinks something's cute and adorable that you're doing, you're getting some bonus points, I think. Man, I would think that if people think being a musician is difficult, try acting. That seems a lot harder to me.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, and to that comment, when I did the like the acting on this television show, this comedy called One More Time, uh, but my wife, knowing that I'd always been curious about trying it, and then like after the first day, I came home and I was just exhausted and you know, just torn to bits. Like they chewed me up and spat me out. And I came home and she's like, "So, you still want to be an actor?" And I'm like, "Fuck no."
And that's like one day as like an
Yeah,
extra. Imagine 4 months
yeah,
more of every day,
yeah. Well,
18
I wasn't an
hours.
extra.
Well,
Hold
I
on
don't
now.
know. You got to show me this movie.
Yeah, that's it. It's a TV show. Yeah, no, I was a critical part of this episode. I was a blind waiter, and host of this at this restaurant. But yeah, no, I mean to have the lines like that, to be so. I don't want to screw it up for anyone with the cameras rolling and the clock ticking and people that kind of actually know what they're doing around me. Yeah, so it's just nerve wracking and yeah, it knocked the crap out of me. So, but I have to say, the next day, when I went back, having had that under my belt already, it was much better. And yeah, then I was like, yeah, I could do this again. Maybe take some classes as well.
You with your tap dancing classes.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
mentioned you mentioned that you're legally blind, you have low vision. In what ways did that affect you as a drummer? Did it make it more of a challenge, or do you think that in some ways it was actually kind of a gift or a benefit to you as a drummer?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a blessing and a curse. Definitely one way that it probably what was a benefit was that it helped me to develop my memorization of music and to sort of internalize it in a different way. Um, And when I was in my teens and I was playing in like a city-wide community big band, where all the music is charted, and you're playing in an ensemble with like 16 people, and their references are all the horn players and everyone's reference is what beat of what bar, what measure. What end, like second ending, the coda, all that stuff. And for me, I learned how to like understand notation, and but ultimately, I would internalize the music and do my best to sort of like at first follow along. I would literally hold the chart. We get a new chart, and I would hold it like right in front of my face with one hand because I couldn't get the stand close enough. I literally had to have it like a few inches in front of my face, and with the other hand and the other limbs, I would just play time, play the accents, play the hits, try to do the setups, and kind of learn it that way, and then put the chart away once I had an understanding of what was happening, and then I would find myself listening more to the band. So and by doing that, then I started to like just internalize it and memorize it as a song, like a piece of music, a song, like rather than the notes on the page. But that, I mean, that also has what was a bit of a hindrance, especially in other situations that I just couldn't get myself involved in because my reading just wasn't up to snuff, especially later in my music education. Um, so yeah, and I could argue that, oh well, I hear music differently or I hear it on a deeper level than someone who is fully sighted, but I don't know if I can prove that. I don't even know if I believe that.
You can't
It,
compare it, right?
Yeah,
You just have your
exactly.
experience of it.
Exactly. And so there's no right like there's no definitive answer I can give you for that other than yeah, my memorization skills.
So we have a fan question from Rosemary Johnstone. Her question is, what would you say to Terry Fox if you met him? There's a
Wow.
love of Terry Fox here, is what my understanding.
Yes, lifelong. I've met him in my dreams. Um but it's like I was starstruck. I don't think I ever said a word to him in my dreams, but man, yeah, I'm sort of tongue-tied right now.
What is
Yeah.
it about Terry Fox? I mean, obviously he's a hero and a legend, but what is it specifically that drew you to him? And how young were you when this healthy obsession started?
Yeah. Well, you know what I would do? I would just give him a hug. And I feel like I've gotten to know him as much as anyone can through getting to know his family and people that were very close to him over the years. And it's really because for whatever reason, we had on tape, recorded on VHS, the Terry Fox story, the movie, the TV movie. And I think there was, I'm the youngest of three, and my older siblings were fascinated by him and, by what he went through and what he accomplished. And, it's displayed, it's all displayed in that movie in a sort of like raw, intense manner. Um, but then again, hey, it was the early 80s. Everything was like raw and intense. We weren't shielded from anything in those days. So my siblings put the movie on a lot. And, they would talk about, oh, the guy that played Terry Fox in the movie was a real life amputee. And in the beginning of the movie, they showed he and his friend playing basketball, and they had like shots of their legs. And the Terry Fox character had legs in that opening scene. And then, fast forward, he gets the diagnosis, and now there's a close up of him getting fitted for an artificial leg. And the gravity of seeing that at such a young age really was, again, to say what to use the terms I used before about Jackson, terrifying and also fascinating. Um, you know, and I think and that was my reaction. I can't speak to my brother and sister's reaction. They were definitely fascinated, but for me, it was like I was younger, and it was like scary, but also fascinating. And through that, I started to develop like really intense empathy, like an unhealthy amount of empathy, which I think in later years turned into anxiety. But yeah, it had such a deep impact on me. And as I got older and learned more about what he did and what he actually accomplished, it's the meaning of Terry Fox to me has changed and grown. And um, from just being fascinated to being just awestruck, and yeah, Terry Fox is such an important part of my life. Any way you cut it.
So I live off of Terry Fox Road in Canada, outside of Ottawa, right by the Ottawa Senators Arena. So I want to throw
Wow.
that in just for brownie points. I live off of
Cool.
Terry Fox Road. So there
Nice.
you go.
Well done.
Yes. How early on did you know that you had something special as a drummer and that maybe you could do this as a living, as a professional musician, if you really dedicated yourself to the craft?
Yeah, that kind of brings up the idea of positive reinforcement. And I think if I didn't have the positive reinforcement, I wouldn't have known. I would have wondered. And it's so crucial to have that at any and every stage of your life, because even after all these years of doing this thing, uh, and still and having positive reinforcement at every step of the way. Thankfully, I still doubt myself like anybody else. So yeah, I mean, it was like when first of all had to prove to my parents that it wasn't just a passing like fad or obsession for me. And I finally got a real drum kit, and then I had taught myself sort of like by watching, whatever concerts they were showing on TV and stuff, and playing on the pillows on the couch, that I kind of had an idea, and through that dedication to figure it out, I was able to do it, and I kind of figured out the coordination involved with the basics. And when I got the drum kit, we hired a teacher right off the bat, and because my parents were like, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it right. So we got a teacher, this guy George El Shakia in Montreal, and his reaction to my ability was definitely pivotal, because it was someone other than my parents, in my corner. So yeah, and I was 11 at the time, and then it just went on from there, again with just sort of positive reinforcement, from different different people in my life that I've come across, that I had respect for. My high school music teacher, this guy Danny Christensen, who was like a very who had a successful career as an LA session trumpet player in like the 70s, and was on the Sammy Davis Jr. TV show in his band, and had his own recording career in when he once he moved to Canada. And yeah, like I was introduced to him when I was like 12, going into seventh grade, and he took me under his wing, and that made me feel special. It's like, oh, well, I guess I do, other than my sheer dedication to the craft, maybe I do have something a little special here. So yeah, that people I respected wanted to nurture that. I think that went a really long way with me.
So, speaking of positive reinforcement, I wanted to kick off this interview powerfully. So, I reached out to another iconic Canadian drummer, and he sent in some kind words. This is from Glenn Milcham from Blue Rodeo. And Glenn says, and he talks about some of the early successes you had. He says, Josh is a great drummer and an all around good guy. I first met him when he was playing with Dustin Bentall on a tour opening for Blue Rodeo. This was about 15 years ago. I immediately noticed how solid, groovy, and musical his playing was. I love that he played with Mahogany Rush when he was starting out. That's a serious education. I have a lot of respect for Josh's dedication to the instrument and the kindness and respect he shows other musicians. That's from Glenn Milcham, Blue Rodeo.
Wow, I didn't even it didn't even occur to me Glenn remembered when we first met. I remember it like very vividly, and yeah, it's you never really think that anyone you know even cares to know your past. Like you mentioned about Mahogany Rush. Like I always feel like I have to remind people, hey, I played with so and so and so and so. It's really sweet to know, that people that I really look up to and respect are paying attention. It's almost like surreal. It's like too much. Yeah, and Glenn is just fantastic. I marvel at, like, the way he plays, and also the way he doesn't get to play in Blue Rodeo. Like, I've seen him shred, like the double bass drum and stuff. Like, yeah, he is fantastic. Thank you, Glenn. It's so sweet of you.
Can you talk a little bit about your music career leading up to the Sam Roberts days? So there's Mahogany Rush. Is it true that you were only 20 years old when you first started playing with Mahogany Rush?
It's true. It's true. Yes.
The rumors are
No,
true.
The rumors are true. No word of a lie, man. Yeah, I just came back from. I was going to Berklee College of Music, and I had just come back for the summer vacation, and like solidified my roommates for the next semester and all this and all that, and but like any uh young musician going to a place like Berkeley or most music schools, most schools for the performing arts, the real intent is to try to get a gig, right? That's the
That's
real
true.
intention. You know. So I came home and all of a sudden I got a call from my friend, just this guy Justin West, who actually is the president of Secret City Records, who has like a great roster of artists in his own right. And his father is a guy named Jim West, who started a jazz record label, like the one of the most prominent jazz record labels in North America, particularly in Canada, called Just in Time Records. They founded like Diana Krall and yeah, many other jazz greats of the last 40 years. Um, so Jim West, the president of the jazz label, his earliest gig in music was working for Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush. So they had a close relationship for all those years. And at the time, this was in, I guess, the late spring 2001, Frank was looking for a new drummer. And he was hoping to find someone local in Montreal. So they recommended me, and they brought over a video of a performance I gave at the Montreal Drum Fest from like a year and a half, 2 years prior, and he thought, cool, all right, the kid can play. Bring him over. I'll meet him. So we met, and I remember all these things vividly. It's like any pivotal moment in my life, at least, I definitely remember a lot of it, like details. And so yeah, I met him, and that was the beginning of my real professional touring career.
As a session musician and as a touring musician, you've performed with members of Bare Naked Ladies, Cream, Smashing Pumpkins, Scorpions. Is any of that before Sam Roberts, or is it all once you were with Sam Roberts?
All of that is before Sam Roberts and the
Wow.
guys. Yeah,
Okay. You figure
yeah.
that your success with Sam Roberts would open up doors to things like that, but man, that was before. Okay, tell me a little bit
No,
about any of
it closed
those.
the doors because people are like, well, he's busy with Sam and the guys.
Damn you, Sam Roberts.
Yeah. Okay. Well, shit. Where to begin? Well, real quick, the Smashing Pumpkins thing, that was James Iha, the guitar player, and he was producing this female artist from Montreal, and I got connected with her through I can't remember, I think well, some mutual friend for sure. And she was going down to record with James in New York, and invited me to take part in it. So I did, and it was super cool. And like he tracked with me live. I think he may have played bass, but I just remember like in that session that he came up with a part that just reminded me of one of the Smashing Pumpkins songs, "Tonight Tonight," and I was like, man, that is so cool. It was just one of those like, what am I doing here moments, like just incredible.
Were
Um,
you a Smashing Pumpkins fan before that? We're talking about the early 90s is when you really started to become a lover of music, and the Pumpkins at that point were one of the biggest bands on planet Earth.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I was a fan, but I was like definitely an appreciator of their music. Like I loved many songs, but I wouldn't be like, oh, the Pumpkins are coming to town, I gotta go. Yeah, so it was kind of like on the periphery, like they were doing their thing and I was digging it, but I wasn't like diehard fan or anything. Um, but I was aware, and I was aware of how damn cool it was to be working with him, and I'm sure he doesn't remember me from Adam. Anyway, um, so the other, yeah, what was the other stuff?
Bare Naked Ladies,
Bare Naked
Cream,
Ladies.
Scorpions. You want to pick any of those, and then we'll dive into your career with Sam Roberts.
Okay, so the cream thing is was when I was playing with Frank Marino. This was in 2002. There was a package tour being put together in the UK, and to our luck, especially my luck, the one of the artists to be on that tour couldn't make it. The guitarist Michael Schenker. Um, and so Frank was like the next guy on the list. So they called him up and asked if he would be interested in taking part in this tour. They were calling it Legends of Rock, and it was curated and put on by Uli John Roth, who is another '70s guitar god. He was the original guitarist for the Scorpions, and as far as I know, he was like the first guy to start like playing the kind of classical, like the neoclassical electric guitar movement that like Yngwie Malmsteen is very well known for. Uli John Roth, as far as I know, was the first. So, and clearly he was very well connected because he had on this tour he had Glenn Hughes from Deep Purple, who was one of the bass players and one of the I think one of the he was the backup singer, sang all the high notes, and Jack Bruce from Cream and from many other amazing bands that he had with great drummers, Tony Williams, and and then they had a house band that was to play with everyone, and the drummer in the house band was Clive Bunker. He was the original Jethro Tull drummer. So they asked Frank to do it, and he said, "Sure, but I'm not doing it unless I can bring my band." Our bass player couldn't come, guitar player couldn't come. I was available, so I went. And I went from like it was kind of like this opportunity is so good. It doesn't matter. And I was so young. So if I was gonna get paid this or that or any of that kind of stuff, the any logistics didn't matter as long as I could go. My parents were like, just for the experience alone, like we'd pay for you to do this. It's like it's worth like a million Berkeleys over again. Um, and needless to say, I didn't get paid. But my expenses were paid, the flight and everything. It was wild because even on that tour, like there was a bus for like the band and crew, like the house band and crew, and there wasn't even a bunk for me because I was a late addition. I had to share a bunk with the truck driver, and so when we were moving, I could sleep in the bunk, and when we were stationary, that's when he came in and slap kicked me out.
And some nights you had to decide small spoon or big spoon.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, yeah, I would just move to like they had like a lounge, So yeah, it wasn't an issue then. I was 21 and I was so grateful to be there and to be in the presence of the rock and music royalty, like Jack Bruce from Cream, getting to jam with him, and just kind of shoot the shit, and it was just unbelievable, an unbelievable experience. I'm trying to think if there's any crazy stories. I'm sure there are, but I'm just so excited talking about this stuff. It's hard to like, conjure up certain things.
That's all good.
Yeah.
If a story comes to you, you can just interject at any point. Let's dive into your career with Sam Roberts. So there's a little bit of his career at the start. There's an EP and an album before
Hmm.
you come into the picture, I believe. So let's just cover that part a little bit, and then we'll dive into your playing with Sam Roberts. Do you remember the first time you actually heard about this Sam Roberts guy?
Uh, yeah, I remember the first time I saw the video for "Don't Walk Away, Eileen." And I thought, this is great. This is cool. This is like a breath of fresh air from most of what I was seeing at the time on like Much Music and hearing on like commercial radio. Uh, and and I remember also being in like a cafe I used to hang out at in Montreal and hearing Brother Down, and I knew that there was a lot of hype about around the song, and I remember thinking, I don't get it. I don't even like this song. But I did like Don't Walk Away, Eileen, and then Where Have All the Good People came out, and I also thought, man, this is great stuff. And a friend of mine played me who had bought the album We Were Born in a Flame, and played me their favorite song, which was Hard Road. And they put it on, and I was like, man, it's okay. It's okay. But you know, and I was just hearing constantly about this Sam Roberts guy, and he's from Montreal, and I'm thinking, I felt like I'm pretty dialed into the musical pulse of Montreal. I never met this guy. I don't know this guy. Where the hell did he come from? What the fuck's going on here? And then it's funny because I remember talking to a very close friend that I had been working with, playing music with for years, and was in his band, and always had his studio recording his music and stuff. And I'm on the phone with him, and I hear one of like Sam Roberts tracks from that album playing in the background, and I'm like, "You're what? Do you have the radio on or something? What's going on?" And he's like, "No, George, who's was this guy's roommate. This guy, George, he's a drummer. He played in the Deers. He's like, yeah, no, George is just listening to, okay, he because he played on the album. And I'm like, what? And it was like I was just dumbfounded. I was like, what? You guys know this guy, Sam? Like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, we went to like high school together. Like, I know all those guys. We're like really close friends. And yeah, I had no idea. And so that was my perception of things. Like I was for the most part a fan. I was a fan of what they were doing. I was a fan of the songs, with the exception of Brother Down. But luckily that one grew on me because I've had to play it about 1,000 times. Yeah, so that was sort of my perception before the idea of ever playing in the band was a reality, was even a thought.
So that EP comes out in 2002. That's the Inhuman Condition EP. It had the two singles you mentioned, Brother Down and Don't Walk Away, Eileen. Both were
Mhm.
top five hits in Canada. That EP goes gold. I remember man, that EP was so huge, gets two Juno nominations. That's how I discovered the band as well. Brother Down, even though it's not your favorite of those two
Yeah.
songs,
Yeah.
that's the band's still today most popular song on Spotify with over 20 million plays. Why do you think other people love that song so much?
Um, they have no taste. I don't know, man. I mean, it's a great song. It's got a great vibe. It's got a great hooks, good cool groove. Like, it's hard for me to not be able to understand why someone would like it, because now I love it. It just didn't hit me at first. It took it took a while to grow on me. And
It took
hey,
1,000 live performances.
yeah, yeah, but it's like, some of my favorite music like ever growing up took some time to grow on me. So it was a grower for me, you know.
The part in the song where it breaks down and it's just the bass and vocals, that part's pretty awesome.
Yeah, the like for all intents and purposes, that's the chorus.
Yeah, that
That's the
part's pretty
chorus.
the
Yeah.
bass line just playing underneath is pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah, doubling the melody. Yeah, it's cool.
So we have a fan question from Becky Simonowski. Her question is, what is one piece of advice you wish someone had told you about the music industry?
Huh, interesting. Like, when I was working with Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush, I was like we mentioned, I was 20. I was young. I was green. I didn't really know anything. I just had like the ideas of what the music industry was from movies and, interviews and stuff. But I was already getting like quite an earful in terms of the lessons to be learned from the music industry, the things to avoid and to look out for. Um, so, but like prior to that, I'm kind of glad I didn't really. I'm glad no one said tried to sort of teach me the realities, the harsh realities, because it would have like I think it would have shattered my young dreams. I kind of I'm happy to have had the
Learning on the job kind of
yeah,
thing?
the learning on the job, but like the idea of what it was when I was the age that I was, like that there was opportunity out there, and there was more opportunity out there, uh, like trying to in my teens and getting into different drummers, like I wanted to be a session musician. I wasn't planning or like my goal wasn't to be in a band in particular. Um, so, like knowing that in the 90s that at the time there was a pretty healthy music industry and recording industry and everything. I think it's like no one can predict the future, so yeah, I'm happy that I was blissfully ignorant at the time.
After the success of that EP, then Sam Roberts releases his debut full length studio album, We Were Born in a Flame, in 2003. Man, it goes to the next level. Now, instead of going gold, this goes double platinum, a bunch of hit singles. It won 3 Juno Awards. At this point, do you start to be a believer in Sam Roberts?
Well, yeah, at this point, I'm like, gotta get me a piece of this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. I went back, I listened to the entire Sam Roberts and Sam Roberts band discography to prepare for this interview, and I have to say that, there's 5 singles from that album, but 2 of my favorite songs on that album are deeper cuts, Dead End and No Sleep. Do you have any thoughts on those 2 songs? Do you play them at all live, or are they too far back in the discography?
We play them. Yeah, we've been playing Dead End a lot lately, and it's one of my favorites actually. I have a lot of favorites, and most of them are ones that I didn't play on. Um, that's just because I'm a self-loathing drummer. But yeah, Dead End, love it. No Sleep, love it. Love the groove in No Sleep. The kind of sort of shuffly kind of thing, mid-tempo, and yeah, to me they're not even like you said, like kind of B-sides. And the crowds really seem to love those songs too. I think they're a lot of people's favorites, especially No Sleep.
I have some kind words sent in. Man, I'm collecting all the iconic Canadian drummers for this interview.
Love it.
This is from Jeff Burrows from the multi platinum group The Tea Party, as well as Crash Karma. And this is what Jeff says. He says, Josh is one of those subtle yet extremely talented drummers. Things you don't notice when he's playing with Sam, but as a drummer, you notice the incredible talent beneath and beyond the backbeat. One of the best times I've ever had was sitting 12 feet behind the professor at a Rush show with Josh as we both lost our minds watching Neil work his magic. Forever a vivid and fond memory. That's from Jeff Burrows, The Tea Party.
Yeah, I got goosebumps, man. Yeah, again, it's man, like just these guys that in my teens, seeing on Much Music and stuff and Music Plus in Montreal, like that they even know who I am is just I'm just flummoxed. You know,
Good word, flummoxed.
I learned that from my favorite drummer, actually. I learned a lot. That's a whole other conversation of how obsessive I am over like the drummers that I've loved my whole life. But yeah, like yeah, Jeff is such a sweet, great, generous guy, and if not for him, we wouldn't have been watching. I wouldn't have been there with him watching the Professor Neil Peart, from behind the drums, because our bands were playing the next day at that festival, and I went early because a day early to see Rush because he was thoughtful enough to invite me to come out. And yeah, that was insane. The pyro, we were right behind the drums and the pyro. The pyro went off. I've never heard a louder noise in my life, thankfully. And that, it's funny. That also brings to mind like that. That's like, kind of a Forrest Gump kind of scenario where you're like just you're like a fly on the wall for like amazing things, or just like, you know, I've been so fortunate to have like moments like that and so many other really cool things happen on my watch, and involving Neil Peart in particular. When I was 16, I went to St. Catharines, Ontario, and I jammed with this band for a week. And this was like the early days of like people connecting on the internet. This is like 96, 97. And so this band had this ad looking for a drummer, and I answered it and decided I would go check it out. And they had a drum kit for me to use there, but they didn't have a drum throne. And the singer in the band happened to know Neil Peart's sister. And we, next thing I know, we're going to her house. And I get there, walk through the garage into the basement, and it's just like platinum records and awards on the wall, all Rush. And then she gives us this drum throne. It's like an old Tama drum throne, and it used to belong to Neil Peart. So I'm using Neil Peart's drum throne for the week in St. Catharines. Like what the hell is going on?
Did your drum playing rise up to the next level just through osmosis of sitting on his drum kit, on his
No,
seat?
you know what, man? It didn't even maybe, but it didn't even dawn on me until after. Like I was just like my wife always says, you just adapt to whatever it is, you know. And I just adapted. Oh, we're just going to a nice lady's house to get a drum throne. Oh, look, there's Rush stuff on the wall. Oh, she's Neil Peart's sister. That's so cool. Okay, thanks for the drum throne. Okay, we're playing drums for the week. Okay, thank you. Bye bye. And then it's like a year later, I'm like, wait a minute, that was insane.
I'm happy I finally got
Yeah.
to see Rush in concert on their last tour for A Clockwork Angel, that album and that
Oh yeah,
tour. So this is, I guess, 2011, 2012. And man, when you watch that band,
yeah.
you look and there's three members on stage. You close your eyes and you hear 12 members. You're like, how is this possible?
Yeah, exactly. I know. Yeah, definitely one of my favorites, just like not to sound cliche, but love Rush.
So let's dive into your career now with Sam Roberts. This kicks in around the Chemical City album. How did you find out that there was an opening for a drummer for Sam Roberts?
So the friend of mine that I was on the phone with, where I found out that I do have friends that know this guy personally, and that was the kind of thing. It wasn't like I didn't like what Sam was doing. I loved it. I just didn't like. I took offense to the fact that I didn't know him. I was like, what the hell? I thought I knew everyone. Anyway, um, so so yeah, like he. So I mentioned he had a studio. This guy, his name's Joseph Donovan. Um, he had a studio, and the at the time the guys were uh, demoing songs for what would become Chemical City. And the drummer that was playing in the band live at the time, he hadn't recorded on anything to date. His brother was actually the producer slash drummer of the EP, Jordan Zadarozny. And he's a great drummer and amazing producer and obviously very comfortable in the studio because the drumming on the original Brother Down and Don't Walk Away Eileen are fantastic. And then I mentioned our friend George Donoso. He was the drummer for the Deers, and he had played in different bands with Sam and the guys over the years, and he just so happened to be the guy that recorded on "We Were Born in a Flame." So Corey had gained experience playing live with the band, but I think he was feeling uncomfortable in the studio, and it was starting to really get to him. So that was kind of what I was starting to hear. Like the guys are having a hard time, demoing these songs. Maybe you can come in and kind of help them out. And I was like, of course, man, just call me anytime. That never actually ended up coming to fruition, but that's when I first heard that there might be something brewing in there. And I think just like a couple of months after that, I found out that Corey had quit the band. This was in like December of '04, and then in January of '05, they were slated to go down to Australia to record Chemical City, and they'd been like kind of jamming with and trying out different drummers to bring with them, and my friend Joseph was really trying to get me into the fold, and it wasn't happening. So he said, "Hey, we're all gonna go down to this pub. Like there was this like place called Le Pistol on Saint Laurent Boulevard in Montreal, and it was owned by Sam's brother. And I'd been hanging out there for the last couple of years. I knew it well, and he said everyone's gonna be there. Like Sam's gonna be there, and like you guys have to meet. So I went down. I met Sam, and I think the meeting didn't go that great. Uh,
Why do you say that?
Well, because I didn't get the call to go down to Australia with them, or even to jam with the guys after that meeting. He was leaving town the next day, but the rest of the band were staying for the next like 2 weeks to jam with whoever was going to go to Australia with them, and and it didn't end up being me. And one of the things was like I looked a little nuts, So right away I was like this young guy, like few years younger than them, and all like excited, and I had just done this arena tour a few months before that with this other Montreal artist named Jonas. He was opening for Van Halen, so I was doing an arena tour opening for Van Halen for like a month, and I thought, I haven't played like huge rooms like that. I need to do something to like really dazzle on stage, really sparkle. So I got like frosted tips, like super frosted tips,
Double
and
frosted.
double frosted. Yeah. It's so yeah, and at this point my hair had grown out a bit more, so it was like the length of the hair definitely checked the Sam Roberts band box, but the frosted tips thing, now that's a whole other story. So, and I was just being silly and stuff, and I didn't know what like the vibe and everything. So it just Sam was like, I don't know about that guy, and they were already jamming with someone that was like all right. So that was that, and they went to Australia and started recording, and I kind of thought, man, this is not happening. I still like put time into learning all the music just in case. And then like they were there for months, and a couple of months after they were like recording there, they started doing some shows around Australia, and I thought, oh yeah, no, this is not happening. They found their guy, and actually, another point of interest is that the guy that they brought with them, I went to school with this guy, and he's a few years older than me, and when I was in like grade six or grade five, grade something like that, grade five, grade six, and he was in like grade nine or something, he brought his drums to school and left them in like the front like office, and I went I went to one day to like check him out, and he found out about it and did that whole like confront the younger smaller kid by the like pull him up by his collar and be like, hey man, don't touch my drums, like Step Brothers type shit.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, oh, like kind of scary and everything. And it was like, and now he's the same guy is recording with the band. It was like a double slap in the
This
face.
guy's ruining my life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but we were actually cool after that. Like, after he like got me by the scruff and threatened me. We were cool after that. And then anyway, so they came back from Australia, and um, I was starting to hear that they weren't gonna stick with this drummer, and then I think they were at this point they were kind of stuck. They made up their minds that they weren't gonna keep the other guy, and festival season was fast approaching. And my friend Joseph just was talking to them, and he's like, man, just give Josh a shot, like just jam with him. And so finally they caved and they brought me in to jam, and I think that they had no choice because we had shows to do.
But you
You
were
know,
also ready by then. You had been learning the songs.
I've been learning the songs. I cut the frosted tips had grown out. So yeah, no, it was game on. It was game on.
They met Josh 2.0, which is what they
Exactly,
needed.
exactly. So yeah, that was that. And I played my last two gigs with Frank Marino uh, just before that, and then I went to Toronto and I played with my friend Mike Evan, who was working with Jim Cregan from Bare Naked Ladies, and Sam's cousin Danielle Duval. So I did that gig, and that was the Bare Naked Ladies thing. Uh, you know, Working with Jim, and the next day, that was June 9th. It was like a North by Northeast show. The next morning, I took the bus back to Montreal. June 10th, got my drums. My dad brought me down to the Sam and the guys' jam space, and we had our first jam.
That leads into the recording of the album Chemical City, which comes out
Mm-hmm.
in 2006. So I'm just going to give some of the accolades on this album. So there's
Mm-hmm.
three singles: The Gate, Bridge to Nowhere, and With a Bullet. All three are top 10 singles, and The Gate goes to number one. Do you remember hearing the news that this song this is your first number one single?
Yeah, I do. I remember where I was in like the parking lot of like a seedy hotel that we were doing a photo shoot at. Um, yeah, I remember where I was when I heard various pieces of news surrounding Chemical City, which is, I mean, it's like the first time for these, monumental occurrences in one's life. It's amazing. Like I remember like when I found out that the album went gold, I was ordering my first butter chicken I ever had at a place in Edmonton.
That's a double win.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, because it was very, very delicious.
And then
Um,
do you remember finding out that it went platinum?
yeah, that was more recently after
Okay,
I
it built over time to platinum
yeah,
status.
yeah, it went gold like pretty quick, pretty like in a matter of a few weeks, I think, and then the platinum thing happened like, you know, a decade later or something like that. which is sort of par for the course with Canadian music.
Did
Yeah.
you feel pressure with this album trying to follow up the multi-platinum success of the last album, or were you just more excited to be a part of the Sam Roberts experience with this album?
I was just excited to be a part of it, and to lend my musicality and musicianship to the project. Uh, the pressure to reproduce another successful album, or maybe the to even combat that, and to because that's a sort of a very popular like trope in music and in the art, is to like purposely like do the opposite of it's like the artistic integrity. It's like, well, I don't want to sell out. I want to like make an artistic statement, and that was definitely something that was going on with Chemical City, because it was like almost like in some ways a concept album, and it's your second record and it's the follow up to a very successful uh, debut. So I was just my role was contribute the best I could at the time, and try to read the room, you know, and that's what I think I did. And the everything that was recorded, or most of what was recorded in Australia, had to be redone actually, and that's why I got to be on that album in the first place, because they came home with a quote unquote finished product, but there was some sonic issues with it, and maybe some performance issues, and what have you. So a story that some of the guys in the band like to tell is the song "The Gate" that you mentioned. I actually That was one that we didn't re-record from scratch because Sam loved the vibe. Um, but there was no click on that. A lot of the stuff was recorded with no click, and uh, the sort of roadmap, the meter roadmap on that is like really all over the place. Um, so I kind of learned where it leans to, like where it speeds up and slows down and whatever. And he wanted to maintain the energy on the original thing, so didn't want to redo it. So I went in and put my drums over the existing roadmap or blueprints of the song, and miraculously it ended up coming out and sounding like groovy and good, and single worthy.
This episode has been brought to you by the Women in the Music Industry podcast. It's hosted by music producer Rob Wells, who has worked with global superstars like Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, and Selena Gomez. Through his 1 hour interviews, he shines a spotlight on the remarkable women who are breaking barriers and making their mark in the music industry. Some of his notable guests include Morgan Lander of the multi-million selling metal band Kitty, and Pam Shane, who co-wrote Genie in a Bottle for Christina Aguilera. If you're a fan of the Joel Martin Mastery podcast, you'll love the Women in the Music Industry podcast, which is available on all platforms. I've been a Sam Roberts Band fan for 23 years, and still to this day, Bridge to Nowhere is my favorite song. And did you know you had something special when you guys finished writing and or recording that song?
Um, I wouldn't say so. I mean, certainly from my perspective, I didn't even think of any songs in terms of uh, is this one going to be successful or not. I hadn't that part of my like music business mindset hadn't even formed yet at that point. And I just thought this is music that I respect and that people really seem to respect the same way that one would respect, like, an artist like Leonard Cohen. I always, in many ways, put Sam in that category as an artist and as a songwriter. So commercial viability never came into the equation, not then at least. So I just thought it was a cool song, and I liked that it was like, in three, the meter 3/4, and I remember recording it, and I just wanted to make good art, like it was like a really, it was a winning combination because it was like good art, cool art, and but also the kind that you can make a living from because people appreciate it. You know what I mean? And so yeah, that's really all it was, and I think that's what anyone in the band probably thought of it as well. No, I don't think anyone was even thinking about if it's gonna really resonate on that level, you know?
So we started the interview by trying to manifest that someday you're going to tap dance at the Junos. Well, this album gets nominated for Rock Album of the Year at the Junos, and it wins the Juno Award for Video of the Year. What did those early nominations and wins mean to you? This is Canada's Grammys acknowledging your music and your talent.
Yeah, well, like the We Were Born in a Flame, like swept the Junos, and that was right before I came into the band, and I just, as a sort of a spectator and a music fan, I was just astonished that a rock band, a really raw and rugged rock band could reach people like that on that level and beat out, established international acts. So it felt like we were in Canada's warm embrace. Coming into it, it felt like a safe space, and I think that's probably what helped to perpetuate the idea of like making art rather than trying to make successful hit singles. So that was a really nice place to be in. And yeah, and definitely having that sort of relationship with the Junos over the years, where there's recognition. I just obviously it felt great to be recognized and to be, to have the idea that people would make space for what Sam and the rest of us are doing and putting out there, because as time has gone by, there's a lot less space for anything, for any one thing. And that's also partly why, over the years, it becomes something different. You still have to try to play the game of, are and ask the questions: are people gonna respond to this? That's something that you have to put back into the equation, because it's not just we can't just keep making Chemical City because we're not doing it on the heels of something that was like that was as far reaching as We Were Born in a Flame. But yeah, the Junos, playing on the Junos, which we had done multiple times, and being a part of it is just, it was just fantastic to have those opportunities.
As we collect quotes from Canada's most iconic drummers,
Yeah.
this next one is from the drummer of my all-time favorite band, Winter Sleep. This is from Lowell Campbell, who has also been playing with Billy Talent for the last few years. I
Yeah.
went out and saw him, and he crushed it with Billy Talent.
Cool.
So Lowell says, Josh is a master. We've had great fun in the drum nerdiness universe over the years. He kind of embodies someone you think is in or should be in the Wrecking Crew, but he's just a G from Montreal. I remember the first time Winter Sleep opened for the Sam Roberts Band back in 2006-ish in Fredericton. We geeked out about vintage emperors, and it's been a joy to see him consistently be on the top of his game since then. He's a sweetie pie and an awesome musician slash person. I hope you guys talk a lot about Jeff Porcaro. Much love, Josh and Joelle. That's from Lowell Campbell, Winter Sleep, and Billy Talent.
Oh man, that's so sweet. That like he mentions the first time that Winter Sleep opened for us, and I literally remember I can still visualize like Lowell setting up his drums right in front of me. I had just gotten back from visiting the Sabian factory, and I came back with like some fresh pies from Sabian. I was just putting them on my kit, and Lowell was setting up, and that's when we first met. That's when I first set yeah, like saw looked into his baby browns. Yes,
He
very nice.
man,
And
his drumming with Winter Sleep,
very
he's
kind
almost like
eyes.
the main instrument when you see them play. His drums are
Yeah,
like so
his
commanding up
his
there.
parts are so cool, and he is just such a sweet guy. And he's crushing it with Billy Talent. It looks effortless, and that's it's like a lot of times you see great players and it looks effortless, and you wonder, is it? And no, it's not. It's painful. Like I even like looking at videos of myself after playing something, and I know that I was like dying up there, and then I look at it and I'm like, man, it's like it's not fair. Like and Lowell just really looks like he's just reading the paper, and he's just crushing these super intense Billy Talent songs. And he also played with Broken Social Scene, and that is no small feat. Those drum parts, Justin Perov's drum parts, are insane. Yeah, Lowell's a powerhouse.
So I've seen Winter Sleep, I don't know, 15, 20 times, but a few years ago, I went to see Rise Against and Billy Talent
Hmm.
just to see those two bands. And then Billy Talent's playing, and I'm like, that looks like Lowell from Winter Sleep on the drums, but it made no sense because I didn't know that he had
Right?
started doing that. So
Yeah.
at one point, the Billy Talent singer Ben says, "Oh, please welcome our new friend Lowell on the drums." And
Awesome.
my mind was blown because I was seeing Billy Talent, a band I love, with the drummer from my favorite band. So I was getting kind of the best of all worlds at that gig. And, Lowell is awesome and he was awesome with Billy Talent, but Billy Talent themselves were absolutely incredible. Like such professional musicians. The songs were great. The performances were great. I was really impressed with Billy Talent.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen a full live set of theirs. We've been on a few festival dates with them, but I've definitely seen a lot of footage with like over the years with their various drummers, and like all incredible. And yeah, like Lowell really struck me as just being like ultra relaxed, which like is how do you do that in a band like that?
Maybe
Uh,
that's like an East Coast vibe.
oh, probably. Yeah, totally. Nailed it.
So in 2008, you guys released the next album, Love at the End of the World. This is the band's first number one album. It goes gold. There's three singles. Them Kids is another number one single. Listening to that song with headphones on, there's really unique stick and tom work on Them Kids. Do you remember coming up with your parts on that song?
Yeah, and yeah, you mentioned the number one thing. I remember finding out about that also, and that Madonna was currently holding that number one spot, and how cool it, and just
You knocked Madonna off the
knocked me.
perch.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it certainly, granted, it wasn't the Madonna like of the '80s, but still, it's still Madonna.
She's had enough number ones. Move
She's had
over,
it
Madonna.
exactly, but just the idea of that was just mind blowing. Yeah, the them kids thing, like I sort of the thing the main thing with that beat was that I wanted to do these like offbeat tom hits, and it was supposed to be like a sort of a train beat, like a train inspired beat, which is, like kind of like a rockabilly kind of vibe. And but I didn't want to just do a regular rockabilly thing. I wanted to have these tom accents, just to help propel it, and say a little bit more with the drums, which was something that was more important to me back then as well. And I found that in order to do that, I had to sort of to do it while maintaining a train type groove. I had to do it by leading with my left hand instead of my right hand, to be able to have those tom hits land on the beats I wanted them to land on. And so that's just what it turned into. And then like the all the other beats with the right hand ended up being more interesting to play on the rim of the snare rather than on the head. And then it just became its own thing. It was, you know, it passed the test, it checked all the boxes. Like everyone agreed that it was cool because when you're presenting something to the rest of the guys and the producers and everyone that's in the room, you, it's
It
hard
has to
to
pass the
it's
committee.
hard past the committee. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it made it past, and maybe it was one of those days where like not everyone was there, so it worked. So sometimes you got to be strategic with that kind of stuff. So yeah, and it's like definitely, especially live, because like I incorporate something uh, that I picked up from another fellow drummer around 2008. So when we were working on that album, this guy Julien Blay, who played in the Stills at the time, he was doing this thing with an extra hi hat stand with a tambourine on it, just a tambourine, no hi hat cymbals, where he had the setting on the pedal like the tension was high enough so that he could get two strokes for the price of one. So you get the downstroke with your foot, and then the upswing you get another stroke of the tambourine. So we were on them kids. We recorded tambourine like regular, played with your hands, and since it was such a heavily featured part of that mix and that drum beat, the tambourine, I thought, oh man, like I'm gonna borrow this technique, this idea of this like extra hi hat stand with a tambourine, and use it to, actually recreate the real feel and sound and vibe of them kids live. And then I started doing it with a handful of other songs that had little tambourine bits, like you know, "Don't Walk Away, Eileen." There's a tambourine that comes in the last chorus, and it really lifts up the momentum is going, and then that tambourine comes in and it just brings it up to another gear. And so it's become like a real like great tool, great like musical like weapon, yeah, so that them kids thing was kind of the dawning of employing that technique, or that tool.
You mentioned a little earlier Joseph Donovan. So he would
Mm,
go on to produce Chemical City as well as Love at the End of the World. And I
yeah.
wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't reach out to one Joseph Donovan and
Yeah.
get some kind words. So
Oh,
Joseph
awesome.
says, aside from being a very talented musician, Josh is an extremely loyal friend. It's great having him in the studio because once the session is done, you inevitably discover all kinds of cool drum gear that was forgotten and left behind. So you have new toys to play with for several months until he finally retrieves them. That's from Joseph Donovan.
Man, that's great. That's hilarious. Like I was just thinking the other day, I'm certain that there's like a symbol or two that is at Joseph's studio and has been for years, like, and it's been like that since like the late 90s with Joe. Yeah, I'd always somehow ADD, leave something behind and then forget. And then when I'm looking for it, it's like, oh yeah, it's at Joe's studio. So yeah, I wonder
Just
what
always
gear
assume
he's
that
playing
it's
with
at
there.
Joe's studio if you're
Yeah, I
missing
know,
something.
man. I know. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, Joe, like it's funny because I first met him when I was like 14 or 15, something like that, where the band that he had at the time, the singer's brother was a drummer and had the same teacher as me, and they were looking for someone to join the band and recommended me, but it ended up being that they were talked out of it. Their manager talked them out of it because I was so young. I was heartbroken. But years later, another band that this guy was sort of managing, I started playing with, and he came to see us, and he was like, "Oh yeah, wow, and you're great, and now you're like older and legal, and now maybe you could play in this other band." So that I ended up they were still making music, and once again they were looking for someone. Joe's band was, so I joined them, and we became like great friends ever since.
So the album Love at the End of the World gets nominated for a whopping 5 Juno Awards. It wins for Artist of the Year and Rock Album of the Year.
Mm.
And that leads us to the album Collider in 2011. This is the first Sam Roberts album that is now under the name Sam Roberts Band. Can you talk about how that change in the naming came to be? Was it important that, okay, it's not the name of one guy now, this is a full band thing?
I think it was like, definitely just sort of a representation of where we were at as a unit, and then the way that we worked together on the songs, and because Sam would bring in, especially in those days, a more bare bones demo, and we would really take a lot of time together to put the pieces of the song together, and then that coupled with like the family vibe of the band, it just seemed to make sense, and I think timing kind of just has a lot to do with the name of things at certain times. And I think that when there was the initial success, it just so happened to be Sam. You know what I mean? It just so happened to be certain guys in that are in the band, like James, our bass player, at that time was teaching English in like Korea, and it just wasn't the quite the unit. So it made sense for it to be called Sam Roberts. But then years later, it was quite obvious that it was a unit, quite a band of brothers, and it just made sense. And I think it was just the time to make that change. And we were being billed as Sam Roberts Band live, like the whole, pretty much the whole time. Certainly by the time I got into the fold. Yeah, so it was nice. It didn't matter to me personally all that much. I was just like, okay, we're gonna do that now. Cool. You know, uh, I didn't really have an opinion one way or the other. It was a nice thing to do though, for sure.
So the album Collider had 4 singles, two of which, I Feel You and Let It In, were top 10 hits. Man, this album has some serious groove to it. I think this might be my favorite Sam Roberts Band album. Is that a popular take? Do you hear that a lot, or is that a exception? Is that a
That's an
strange
exception,
take?
man.
Is it
You're the second person to tell me that it's one of your favorite
ever?
albums. Yes. Yeah. No.
Man,
No.
it's the songs are all great. The grooves are great. The recording's great. To me, it's might be the strongest album in the discography, but who am I? That's just my opinion. Do you have anything to say about that? Am I crazy? You can tell me I'm crazy.
No. No. We personally love, that was an album where we really got to stretch out and try a lot of stuff, and there was a heavy Afrobeat influence on a lot of those songs, and I really felt like I could experiment more. That was sort of the spirit of that whole album. Like I was bringing in like there's one song. What the hell is it called? I can never remember the names of the songs, man.
Was it a
Like
single or no?
and it wasn't a radio single, but we did play it on like for TV shows like this
I
George
Feel You,
Strombofa's
Last Crusade,
Last
Without a
Crusade.
Map. Okay.
Ugh. Last Crusade. This is embarrassing. Yeah, like on that song, that well, I feel sorry, Let It In and Last Crusade. Those are the two cowbell songs for me. And on Last Crusade, I brought in a like a rhythm called and derived from Mozambique. Um, you don't really ever hear that type of just that type of rhythm in Western music, let alone like a rock band. So it was, yeah, definitely experimental, and we got to do a lot of cool stuff and bring and contribute, especially for me, from my perspective. I got to contribute in a really unique way. So that album is definitely important to me. And we had like the most fun time making it because we were in Chicago for like a month and a half, just living it up. And yeah, it was really, really fun. Really, really cool.
So we have a fan question from Jennifer Toy. She says, why isn't there more cowbell? And I place that directly beneath talking about The Last Crusade and Let It In. So you can tell her, hey, reference these two songs. Put headphones on and listen to these two songs, and you should get your
Yeah,
fill of cowbell. But
yeah.
the real answer is there's never enough cowbell. That's why she's asking.
Exactly. I know it's true. It's a shame. It's a real cure-all. I think we're about to go start recording and working on new music. Like, probably around the time that this comes out, I'll be in Vancouver and we're going to be there for a couple of weeks. So I'll make sure to bring my cowbell with me.
And is this for a new album or some singles or an
New
EP?
album, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the idea. We'll see what we walk away with.
The album was produced by Brian Deck.
Mm.
And I have kind words from Brian Deck
Are
as
you
well.
serious?
Yeah, man.
Wow, man.
This is a deep dive,
Oh,
sir, and we go all the way in here. So
wow.
Brian Deck also produced Iron and Wine and Modest Mouse, some awesome
Yeah.
bands, and he must like you because he said quite a bit. So this is from Brian. He says,
Whoa.
"The thing I appreciate most about Josh's playing is his pocket. He's the Keltner of the North. Streets of Heaven on
Whoa.
Collider is a great example." Where he places the downbeat and his sense of where to place the 16th note preceding it make that groove irresistible. So this is very drummer talk here. He says
He is
also
a
that,
drummer as well, by the way.
yeah, I could tell
Yeah.
for sure
Yeah.
from the quote. He says also the dynamic that he consistently delivers with that 16th on the kick. Purdy depth on his groove. So Purdy, is that another
Bernard
drummer?
Bernard Purdy, yeah.
Okay. And he says, also, on my favorite song of the album, Without a Map, he plays this shuffle that feels great. It makes the eighth note triplet delay that's on the drums texturally interesting because the repeats make a crunchy little flam with his consistent groove. This might be the most technical quote
I
ever.
was just
And there's a
thinking
little
that.
more.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
says, I'd say he's a drummer's drummer, but to me, he's a songwriter's drummer and a producer's drummer. He makes the music work and he keeps his focus on that. So that's from Brian Deck. Very technical.
Wow. Can I get that on a plaque and hang it up in here? Gee.
Absolutely. We will ship that
Wow.
over.
Yeah. That that's I'm at a loss for words. That is too kind. It's just too much. It's too much.
It's too much. Take
And
it back.
all I can see is Brian's face in my mind right now. It's like, and just like a flood of memories from the time we had with him, and like it's just so cool. I mean, I can't say enough nice things about working with Brian. I really miss him. Jeez.
When he called you the Keltner of the North, that's the drummer Jim Keltner that he's
It
referring
is,
to.
yeah, yeah. It's no big deal. Just the biggest compliment ever.
He just played on three of the Beatle members'
Yeah,
solo albums. Like, no big deal.
no big deal. Yeah, yeah. That's fucked up. Wow. Thank you, Brian.
So in 2014, you guys released the next album, Low Fantasy. There's four more singles. We're all in
Yeah.
this together goes to number one. The song Shapeshifters, when you play that live, do people start cutting a rug and dancing like crazy? Because I feel like the rhythm would take me over if I was there and I had a few drinky poos at the concert.
Yeah. Gee, I hope so. It's hard for me to see sometimes what they're doing. But I certainly hope so. It's that's a weird song in terms of the live show because and in terms of like how it performed as a single, it's sort of always like up for debate whether to play it or not. And we played it to death years ago, and we kind of took a break from it. And I gotta say, we started up with putting it back in the set this summer, and I really enjoyed playing it and digging into that groove and that pocket. And it's funny, but the last show we did during that song, our Eric, our keyboard player, like looked over to me and he asked if I'm okay during that song, and then I got in really in my head, and I'm like, oh my God, why, what's wrong? Is because sometimes when you're playing, you're feeling things and feeling the music and the time how you're feeling it, but in reality, it might be really fast or it might be sluggish, but you might not really be aware. And then all of a sudden, someone will say something, and then you'll be like, "Oh my God! Like, am I really hyped up, or am I lacking energy, or what?" And then it's downhill spiral from there. But I tried to not let it get to me, and I just took it like, oh, whatever. Like I laughed it off. And then after the show, I asked why he asked me if I was okay, and he said because the groove was so intense and like deep. It was like a compliment, and he was like, Were you angry? You were really like digging into it. Like I wasn't hitting hard, but something about it felt different to him, and I found that really interesting, but also like really sweet of him to say. But it's just to put it like in a question of are you okay? It kind of just threw me for a loop. So yeah, that it's interesting that people have been bringing up that song more and more lately. So it's like, and now it helps me have newfound appreciation for it.
The
Yeah.
song We're All in This Together, man, the lyrics could have been written about the pandemic, even though it came out 6 years before the
No,
pandemic.
yeah. The theme song of pandemic. Yeah, exactly.
We have a fan question from Donna. Her question is, Josh, you also play jazz style drums as well as rock. How do the two styles differ? I don't know if that's easy to answer.
It's not easy to answer, but it's like there's a certain like flow to both types of music, and that's kind of where it differentiates a little bit. Like the touch for I just know like if I'm you know, getting on the drums and I'm practicing and I'm playing jazz, or if I'm practicing something rock, that the intention is a bit different, and sort of like I mentioned, the touch and and flow is like I approach it differently. The time, and the way that the time moves, that doesn't really change. It's just kind of like and certainly the vocabulary, of course. The vocabulary is really the main difference, um, and the feel. But then there's like certain areas of rock music and in the jazz world where they converge. So yeah, I mean, it's just you know that's kind of the sort of the best way in this moment that I can sum it up.
In 2016, you guys released the album Terraform. There's three singles. The single If You Want It goes all the way to number two. For me, listening to the album, the songs Fiend and If You Want It are awesome. Those are my favorite. And we have a fan question from Lisa Eisenbayes. I definitely butchered that last name. Lisa's question is, how do you care for yourself to ensure optimal physical health and reduce injury for drumming?
I don't. I get injured. I'm really bad at that. Like, like warming up before a performance and doing proper stretches or different, warm up techniques. I don't do any one thing, as like like ritualistically. Like I don't, you know what I mean? I don't have like a set pre-show ritual. Um, Sometimes if I am feeling like a little bit tight, I'll do a little bit of warming up. Or if I'm feeling like, my arms or my hands feel weak, I'll do something. I kind of liken that to like when a batter is like, about to like when they're warming up before they get to the batter box. They're warming up with a weight on their bat. So sometimes I'll like warm up a little bit if I feel like I need to with two sticks in one hand, or I'll flip it around so the butt end is which is heavier, just to give like just it's the same principle, because then once it comes off or the weight comes off the bat feels like lighter. And same thing. If I'm warming up with two sticks, smacking them around, then all of a sudden I get rid of one of the sticks. All of a sudden I'm flying, So and then in terms of trying to avoid injury, being loose, being conscious of what you're doing, and not like falling into certain traps. And I think it's like just an ongoing thing where you're kind of fighting with the different parts of your brain. Like you can get into like a flow, and the flow state thing, uh which is great and feels amazing and freeing and liberating musically and stuff. But then you kind of also have to make sure that you're keeping track of your making sure your bad habits don't come into play and take over. So it's kind of definitely an ongoing challenge, and it's a constant like learning curve. uh, because yeah, I've had a lot of injuries, like to my wrists and stuff. A lot of the time, not on the drums, but certainly it's happened for sure. So yeah, and I'm conscious of it. I don't definitely have like a definitive answer on what like something that works for me. I'm still figuring that out.
So in 2020, you guys released the album All of Us. What were the challenges in writing, recording, and releasing an album during a global pandemic?
Well, we were all terrified. Yeah, like we had up to March 11th, which is like the pandemic day, right? We had done a fair bit of recording for that album. But we had planned on finishing things up with a couple of weeks up in the Laurentians, which was supposed to be just really liberating and relaxing. And but that's not what was in store for us. Like I think we went up there on like the 14th or 15th or something, and no one knew what was happening. Every day we were waiting for news, and it was very like really in the middle of nowhere, desolate and beautiful, but we had like very little reception, phone reception, like access to news outlets and stuff. So it was incredibly anxiety inducing. And I remember being up there. I think early on in that experience, and we hadn't yet recorded the song All of Us, because I think they were being written a few at a time, and then we would go in and record, and then take time off. Sam would write more and go in and record. So that song in particular, I remember hearing, like listening to the demo the night before I was gonna lay the lay the drums down on it, and listening to the song and hearing those lyrics and how just timely and painfully accurate they were to what we were seeing and unfolding before our eyes. Um, so I think I had to double up on the Xanax that night to be able to try to sleep. Yeah, and it became a very emotional recording experience. Some of the songs, especially the lyrical content, and like Sam would be in the vocal booth, singing, and the rest of us, along with Gus, the producer, we would be in the control room listening, and everyone would be in tears, and sometimes Sam would even, you know, we could hear him kind of like his voice breaking up because he was getting emotional, and yeah, it was, looking. I mean, it was scary, but we were aware that it was, we were doing something special, and these songs were really hitting us on a deep level, and in looking back on it, it was a really beautiful experience.
And did it feel cathartic releasing something positive during such dark and negative and uncertain times?
Of course, it definitely, it felt cathartic to be able to be creative in those times, and and have be privileged enough to be able to do something like that. But also, we were questioning whether we should even be doing this at the time, for a myriad of reasons. One, like, is it appropriate? Is it too soon? Like that kind of thing. And also just like, is anyone even gonna give a shit? Because people have bigger kind of problems and fish to fry now than like to pay attention to some band's new album. Like, everyone was struggling with financial concerns, health concerns, you name it. So but I think we're glad it turned out the way it did, and we put it out at the time that we did, and it was great. No regrets. The only thing that kind of sucked is that we weren't able to properly tour that album.
So in 2023, you released the album The Adventures of Ben Blank. Josh, who is Ben Blank?
Yeah, Sam's alter ego. Um, he's always wanted to be a cowboy. Yeah, no, and in some ways that's like a bit of a concept album as well. Um, it's funny, like I don't know if it's just age, but I don't even fully remember recording that album. We did it in Toronto here. I think maybe that's why, because it was just kind of another, because I live in Toronto. So for me, I would just get up and just go down to the studio and then go home. The other guys were here, in like hotels and stuff. So it I think it didn't really have like as much of an effect. It was just kind of like very casual for me. And also, we didn't really work on the music, like in terms of pre-production and that kind of thing. We kind of just went in, as almost like a session musician would, where they just go in, hear the track, and just quickly play what's best, what's right, what works, and there's not a lot of chit chat, and that's kind of what how we approached Ben Blank. And Sam had really well flushed out demos for that as well, so uh, we didn't really need to spend a lot of time figuring out who's doing what.
So we have a fan question from Mike Lalonde. The question is, when a band is named after the front man, did you ever feel overshadowed or less important? And do you have any advice on how someone in the future that has a band with a similar naming mechanism can avoid making their bandmates feel less important?
Yeah, the second part of that question is, it's really simple. It's simple. It's just be fair to your bandmates and make them feel like, that their voice is heard and valid. And yeah, like definitely that is huge. And the sign of a great leader is someone that knows that inherently and knows how to properly lead, where they everyone feels involved. And Sam is one of those guys that he's great at doing that. And he's one of those guys that, when you meet them, they make you feel like you're the only one in the world. Like they're just laser focused on you. Um, you hear that about different people, that they have that sort of type of charisma. Uh, so I mean, I guess that probably helps. Just by being a great leader, you know how to sort of manage your team and make them feel like they are part of a team. What was the first part of that question again?
If just because the band is named after one member, did it ever make you feel,
Oh, yeah.
less important or something?
No, not at all. Like, and I think for me, from my own perspective, it's just like like I mentioned before, I came up in music, like being passionate and getting into the whole thing and deciding that it was going to be my career under the uh, sort of like hope that I was going to be a session musician, a hired gun, um, and that is sort of like the name of the game is working for an artist. So working for someone that it's like you, for the most part, it's their name. So it didn't occur to me as being any kind of an issue, any kind of an ego, like uh, battle of the egos or anything like that. Um, and then it's just like it's just like with anything, you have to know your place and you have to be okay with that. It's just it's like whether it's a band or you're working for a big company or something. It's just you just have to know your name, or there's going to be conflict. But it's easy to avoid conflict. So, and that's what we do.
So we started all the way back at your earliest musical memory, and we've made it all the way to the newest album, Frequencies, that just came out in July. So my understanding is this is basically like a greatest hits album, but the songs were re-recorded. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah. Basically, it's that album was sort of like a little bit of like a launching pad to sort of reignite or reinvent our standing in the UK in particular. We aligned with a new record company there, and I think it was like they must have wanted to have some sort of exclusive release, so we put this together. It's kind of like a little sampler, and I always like with the we re-recorded Brother Down, and I always like to joke that it was like, oh yeah, we did it like a Taylor's version type thing. We did it to have control over uh over
The Masters.
the master of that song in particular. but it was really just, I think, just to give them something fresh, well, not fresh, but like uh, exclusive, and so we wanted to recreate the song and infuse a little bit more of the sort of Britpop influence that is such an important part of this band and their sensibilities.
I listened to the album with a good pair of studio headphones. I have to say that the album sonically sounds incredible. Like it's thick and full and warm and it's a pleasant listen. Do you think that's because you guys are now, after all these years, you're a band where each musician you're firing on all cylinders, you're at the very top of your game. Maybe you had a great engineer or producer or mixing engineer, mastering, or in a great studio. Why do you think this sounds so good sonically?
Yeah, from so many years of cutting our teeth as a band live. I mean, there's a lot of shows under our belts, and everyone knows. Again, it kind of goes back to the like knowing your place, and that's not just with interpersonal relationships. It's also with your musical relationship to your bandmate. And that's something that I think everyone has really found their footing in quite well over the years in our band. And Yeah, definitely, particularly on Brother Down, on the re-recording of Brother Down, we had the producer engineer that we're actually about to go start working with in Vancouver, James James Bull. Let me just double check. I'm not screwing up his name here.
We'll just call him James. He's like
James.
Beyonce. He just needs the
James from
one name.
Yukon Blonde. He's actually from Manchester, and he really gets the that sort of Britpop sensibility, and is like a whiz in the studio behind the desk. So yeah, he was really able to get some really great, rich, warm tones from everything, and good performances from everyone as well.
So I just have one random comment about that album. So the song All of Us,
Mm.
when the hi-hat kicks in and then the full drums kick in, man, that's so good. So it's a random comment I wanted to share about the drums
The All of Us version
on
on
frequencies.
frequencies. Yeah, right. I thank you for reminding me about that. That was a full on reimagining of the original All of Us from the album All of Us, and we were almost like we were like there was a deadline, and we were almost at the point where we didn't have time to figure out how to go about doing this reimagined, like this idea of trying to do a reimagined version of that song. And I, it just dawned on me that our good friend Liam O'Neill, who used to be in the Stills, and he's been with the Kings of Leon for quite a long time. Um, Years ago, when we had when we were all in this together, was a new song. He, along with Jimmy Shaw from Metric, offered to remix it for like a crossover, like to try to get it on like hot AC pop radio, mainstream radio, and we never took them up on that. So it just dawned on me like this could be a great opportunity to try to get them to do something with all of us. Jimmy Shaw was not available, but Liam had a bit of time, and so I contacted him, and he was super into it, and really quickly put something incredible together. And I have this like home recording set up here, so I put down some bit of drums and sent it over to him, threw it in there, and yeah, he did such a great job of what we were really hoping would come of a reimagining of that song. And he sent first just me, his idea, and I sent it to the rest of the guys, thinking that they're never gonna go for this, and because it's sometimes when you're trying to get someone to think outside of the box, it ain't the easiest thing to do,
It's
So
also that
we
damn committee you got to go through.
exactly. But it's like when you're used to hearing something one way, uh, it's just difficult to wrap your head around a different version, unless you're specifically trying to do like a cool like dub remix or something. Then you know what you're looking for and what to expect. But when it's just the broad idea of let's reimagine a song, with like maybe you mention like a band or something, but it's all very vague. So I was elated because I was digging what he was doing with it. So I was elated to get the feedback back from the rest of the guys, especially Sam and everyone that they were super into it. So then I gave Liam the green light and said, let's do this. And everyone loved it. So I like to think I had a little something to do with that actually coming to fruition.
Instead of having a quote sent in from another iconic Canadian drummer, this time we have some questions sent in from an iconic Canadian drummer. So this is from Sammy Cohn, drummer from the platinum
Uh,
band The Watchmen. And he has several questions. So I'm just going to read through the whole thing and then we can just rapid fire the questions, go
okay.
through them one at a time after. So
Okay.
Sammy says, first off, please say hello. Then he says, Josh, please share what you attribute to the longevity of the Sam Roberts Band. Additionally, are decisions typically made collectively by the band or primarily by Sam? I've always been curious. And lastly, what advice would you give to younger bands aiming to achieve similar long term success in such a tough business? So we'll go through one at a time if you want to rapid fire. What do you attribute to the longevity of the band?
Kind of what I was touching upon before with the idea of like having a good leader and making sure that everyone feels included and involved and keeping morale up. Um, like even like our we have a lot of crew members that stay with us for a very long time, and we have family dinners when we're on the road and stuff, and everyone's included. There's no like real hierarchy, even though obviously everyone knows that it's Sam's name, and he's the guy, and um, but it's really just as simple as that. It like if there's money being made, if money's coming in, and you're not squandering it all and treating everyone like they're second class citizens, and then it's not gonna last because people are gonna get pissed off and annoyed, and so that's another thing. It's just common sense. It's like you be fair to people, like. Money's coming in, participate everyone into the earning. 5440 is a good example. Their core has been the same since the early 80s. The same Neil Osborne and Brad and Matt. It's the same like three guys. There was just one guy, and I was like, oh, man, not related to band politics. It was like another situation where he had to leave, but they split everything evenly no matter who writes, and that's a great way of doing it.
I think Rush does that as well, or Rush did that.
Probably, yeah, and that's definitely a part of it. However, like the sort of business end of things is dealt with, will play into the longevity of a band, and uh, you know, just being self-aware. I think is a thing, and you know, Sam is definitely very, very self-aware, and he won't make rash decisions. He'll really contemplate and think of everything and everyone's well-being. So yeah,
The second question is, are decisions typically made collectively by the band or primarily by Sam?
I mean both. Like
For specific things, probably.
yeah. And there's no real rhyme or reason or like it's to any of that. It's just some things are and some things aren't, and and that's fine. It just depends on circumstance, really. I mean, if we're all in a room or on the bus or something, then these things are talked about, like just like any group of people. Um, and if people are harder to, if we're everyone's at home and be busy and stuff, sometimes things happen. But yeah, and it's never decisions that really have like an effect, or like especially like a negative effect on anyone. So yeah, I think for the most part, a lot of decisions have been made collectively. You know, like who we get as a producer, um, for the most part, has been a collective decision. Every once in a while, it's Sam will decide something and inform us, but it's again, it's never anything that's like you know life changing and like negatively or anything. So it's all good.
His final question is any advice for younger bands that would also like to achieve long-term success in the music industry?
Hey man, we'd all like to achieve long-term success. Yeah, go to med school. So it's what I
That's
so
the
it's what
best
I
music industry advice is do something else.
exactly. That's what I always tell like people that like when I do drum clinics and stuff. But it's obviously it's a joke. Lead with love is the thing I always I like to say. Uh, Lead with love, be fair, be self-aware. It's kind of all the same kind of thing. And and I guess for an up and coming band or artist, that's just to try to be yourself and be good. Good songs will stand the test of time, and yeah, I think try don't follow the trends.
So we've made it to the final few questions for the interview. You have an upcoming tour. So you have 12 shows across Ontario in February. If our listeners go right now and purchase a ticket for a show on that tour, what can they expect from the Sam Roberts Band in concert?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to be apologetic. I'm going to be honest. We deliver a good show, you know? Like the other guys in the band might not be quite as direct in saying something like that, but it'll be a good show because we've just been doing it for too damn long, we know we know what we're doing. Um, and we're on the this specific tour, we're trying to do like more of a focus on songs that have been singles, that have been released in some form or another officially. So it's something a little bit unique, um, but fun and fun, fun for us and fun because there's certain songs that we don't usually put into the set to make room for like, album tracks, B-sides and rarities and stuff like that. Um, but it'll probably be more fun in the sense of like, when you go see like a Bryan Adams and like every song. So it'll be cool like in that sense.
I saw the Sam Roberts Band all the way back in 2003, 2004 at a festival somewhere between London, Ontario and Toronto. And this
Hmm.
might have even been before your time, I'm not sure. But even back
It
then,
would have been, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
even back then, the Sam Roberts Band was awesome. And now you guys have had 2 decades of leveling up your game. So I'm trying to hype you up. I'm trying to hype the tour
Thank
up
you. I
here.
appreciate it, man. And you know what? I would say it's a different kind of awesome. It's like where we traded in the sort of unbridled, reckless abandon, like balls to the wall, just sweaty insanity for like more sophistication and putting the that energy into uh just delivering a more consistently like tight show. Even though the set list changes every day, normally under normal circumstances. I don't know what we're gonna do with this thing if it's gonna be a set, like the set list is gonna be set in advance. That's a question for Sam, but because he does the set lists. But yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's just a different kind of awesome.
We've made it to the final quote of the interview, but this is the one quote to rule them all. I mean, there's only one person that could properly cap off this interview, and this is from your BFF, Colin McDonald from the Trues. And Colin says, Josh is a wonderful person and a fantastic musician. He's definitely the most lovable drummer in all of Canadian rock. He lifts up the music with his natural swing, and he really makes the Sam Roberts band soar. Or should I say, makes the Sam Roberts band Matt Sorum. I'm
Yeah.
lucky. I'm lucky that you guys with your inside jokes. I'm lucky to call him my best good friend. That's from Colin.
My best good friend. Yeah. It's funny. My best good friend, that's just like a thing like my brain works like on like movie quotes, right? I don't know about you or other people, but I'm weird like that. And Forrest refers to Bubba as his best good friend. So I just jokingly refer to those guys as my best good friend. So it's just funny that yeah, Colin picks up on the little like sort of reference and the details and the references that I'll always put out there. Like, not everyone does, but yeah, I mean, Colin, like you discussed with him in his interview when my quote came up, like we really just connected on such a special, deep, unique level. Like he mentioned that we like quote Guns N' Roses interviews. Like who does that? Like no one normal does that. I see people online like, and like people comment all the armchair experts and stuff, the weirdos of the internet like but Colin's not one of those guys and I like to think I'm not either, so it's like really rare to find someone that you can like share like the most obscure, weird references and just lift each other up and just have a laugh about these things. And not to mention that he's also, I mean, Colin is just a powerhouse singer, and a great songwriter. Yeah,
Yeah, the
it's
Trues are another band like Sam Roberts that really bring the thunder live. Like just
yeah,
a battle
man.
tested road warrior band.
Yeah, they I got the opportunity to fill in on drums for them a few times, and just such a joy to play with them. Such fun, big, heavy, fat grooves. And yeah, they really go the extra mile. Like the last time I played with them, I was gonna collapse by the end of it. Like I was like, I gotta hit the gym, man. Jeez, like
We've got the final two questions of the
yeah.
interview. So this is the final fan question from Denny Somerville. His question
Mhm.
is, if you had a time machine and could travel back in time, what advice would you tell your younger self?
Well, that's definitely a Back to the Future inspired question. Um, what would I tell myself? I would say, don't be such a stupid idiot.
Don't be such a dummy.
Don't, yeah, honestly, like, like nothing, because I do look back on myself and like the way that the way I acted, the way in whatever the scenario was or whatever the point in my life it was at whatever is in question. I mean, I'm now contemplating different eras, if you will, and I'm just thinking that like yeah, looking back, it's like well, I was an idiot. I was so stupid. Whatever it is, but who gives a shit? It's kind of like you had to get you had to be lame. You had to be, wrong, stupid, make mistakes. to figure out that they were mistakes, or to figure out that it was lame, or or yeah, anything. I'm not that I did anything like bad or said anything bad, but there's a lot of cringe-worthy moments and things and haircuts and whatever. Like,
The
but
frosted
like
tips, baby.
frosted
Can
tips,
never
man.
live
Like,
those down.
yeah, and you're just, yeah. I was just learning. I was just on my journey learning, was just like anyone. So in terms of like, would I, go back and tell myself it's gonna work out. You're gonna have a career in music. No, because I was determined to make sure that happened, one way or the other.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the fans that have supported you over the last 20 plus years?
Yeah, I mean, it's when we play our shows, and we see this all the familiar faces out there, and we say hi to all the familiar faces that we know by name. It's we it's not lost on us how fortunate we are to have that support. Sometimes we just don't understand it. We're just like, what is wrong with these people? Why do they like our band so much? What? Um, but at the end of the day, we're just so thankful, and I mean that's really just it. Just thank you for, like, you know buying into this ragtag bunch of guys, and you know especially like the band as a whole. Was like, we don't understand it, but like I mentioned before, I feel like Sam is an absolute genius songwriter and performer. So I kind of get that. I was one of those fans early on, except for Brother Down, but
Just the band's biggest song.
but yeah, exactly, exactly. It's like, well, I guess don't trust me when we're trying to think of what the next single should be.
As we wrap up, I want to take a moment to acknowledge you for your lifelong pursuit of mastery as a drummer. I want to commend you for having the courage to dream big, to have a big vision for your life, to pursue that dream, working at your craft on a daily basis since you were a young musician. I want to thank you for putting out great music that's become the soundtrack to the lives of millions of people around the world, mine included. I want to thank you for providing kind words for Colin McDonald for the Trues interview. We got him right in the feels. He got a little emo. So you helped elevate that interview. And last but not least, I want to thank you for sitting down with me for the last 2+ hours for this interview. You answered 23 years worth of Sam Roberts questions that I had built up. So Josh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, and an honor, because you're doing great work. Like, I've been a fan of your podcast for quite a while now, so I was really thrilled to have been asked.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you for the kind words. So to the Josh Trager fans, to the Sam Roberts Band fans, to the podcast fans, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye bye.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Who would you like me to feature next for a 2-hour deep dive interview? You can let me know in the comments. You can also send me an email at joelmartinmastery@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on all social media platforms at joelmartinmastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.